Let's understand today why we shouldn't be avoiding red flags. Now, when we talk about red flags, we also need to understand that everyone is really imperfect, and each one of us has a side to us which is probably a little ugly, a little dark, and there would be things that we may not be even aware of. So, when we talk about red flags or when we talk about a toxic person, we are not talking about that everything has to be perfect and hunky-dory in a relationship, that their partner should have no flaws whatsoever, and when you see a flaw at a drop of a hat, you will drop the relationship and just walk off, because that seems to be what's happening in today's world, and a lot of relationships are falling apart without really making enough effort. So when we talk about red flag, we are basically talking about patterns which, after bringing it up to the notice of your partner and after the pattern being repeated, and you have examined the intention and why this is happening and you have communicated, the person still avoids it. Either avoids conversation about it, or after you have finally managed to converse, then that person avoids making any changes. We don't want to change people, but there are things that can really hurt us, and we must communicate that. And once we communicate it, and if it is really something which is very hurtful, and yet the person continues to do the same thing and is not concerned about how you're feeling, what is happening, how hurt you have been, and there is no remorse and regret, or let's say there is a slight regret but nothing is being changed. After every apology, the same thing repeats, and sometimes it becomes even worse, because every time you tolerate that, you're giving a signal that I'm okay with this. So it's like they increase the dose a little bit. So if you are in a situation like that, then we call that a toxic relationship or a toxic person. And then the red flags. Now, it is important to understand there are other videos I've spoken about red flags, like anger issues, a person who is very reactive, a person who doesn't care about your emotional well-being, doesn't have any sense of respect and honor for your likes, your comfort level, your family, your passion, your dreams, doesn't care about your financial status, or a person who's extremely demanding without keeping in consideration the actual physical reality, situation and condition you're going through, extreme control, obsession, someone who or situations where continuously your emotions are being invalidated, your self-confidence is being shattered, you're continuously being given messages of you're not good enough, you're not doing enough, or you yourself are not good enough. So these are a few red flags, but important ones. Now, why is it important not to ignore red flags, and why is it important to really address the issue of a toxic partner? Now, there can be two situations. Either you are knowing someone and then you get to know there are red flags and the behavior is toxic, or you're already in a kind of a commitment. It can be marriage, live-in, whatever that is. So obviously the second scenario is a little more complicated. However, I will address the second scenario first because it is simpler. You are now in a committed relationship and you need to seek professional help, and you need to really convince and make sure there is a solution found to the situation, and most probably you would need professional help, because if you have identified the person as toxic, and if you are in a committed relationship and you're feeling helpless and the person is refusing to budge, change, or even take any initiative, of course then you need a professional to intervene, someone who can really help both of you understand better, or at least you to understand what is the gravity of the situation. But in the first case, where you're not in a kind of a stamped committed relationship. You still have a way out if you want to. Now, these videos are not to tell you you must break every relationship. Definitely not. It takes a lot of emotions, mental energy, a lot of investment in terms of your dreams, your emotions, your feelings, your time, more than anything else. Sometimes even financial investment has been there, and you want to build a relationship. But if something is beyond repair, then of course you don't want it. It's like if you have cavity in your tooth, or if the whole tooth is gone and it's giving you extreme pain, you have to eventually pull it out if there is no other way of getting it fixed, right? So it's the same thing. Now, in this case, and also in the second case, when the other person is not ready to help and budge, is not taking initiative, it's not willing to cooperate or do anything that will make the situation better, and you are the one who's putting 75%, 80%, 90% sometimes into a relationship, and the other person is just taking, then what happens to you is the scary part. So we all are very resilient beings. We usually get habitual of everything, including toxicity, including bad behavior, including being treated like a nobody. We get used to these kind of stuff, like we get used to junk food, we get used to less sleep, we get used to work pressure. Now, is this a good thing? Of course, it is not a good thing. We must find solution. But in this particular thing, anything to do with the stress, what happens is it unfortunately has a very, very adverse effect on your physical health. So the first 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 years, 7 years, even 10 years, you will want to build it. You will want to hold on. You have hope and you think you can do it. But what has happened is, when you have a partner who's extremely reactive, or has anger issues, or is an avoidant, or someone who is not emotionally, mentally there and doesn't really care, or when they actually care is when they either they attack or they defend themselves aggressively, then what happens is you start to shut down. When I say shut down, first the communication reduces, then the emotions reduces, and as these important aspects of you start to kind of get suppressed, your mental stress starts to increase. And then what happens is it causes your immune system to become weak. So you start catching diseases like flu, viral, this, that, whatever, diabetes, cholesterol. Most importantly, in cases where a person feels, helpless or powerless, thyroid can happen. And you may take these one by one. But what is coming next after all these levels of physical unhealth is something which is scary. And that is when the cortisol level in your body starts to build up. And then after a point in time, you will have inflammation, digestive system, immune system, your joints and bone structure starts getting compromised. Your lungs can be compromised. Lungs is where we store sadness, disappointment, sorrow. So if you have suppressed yourself, you have at some point stopped sharing your truth, or have been scared of sharing your truth, and you have suppressed all the things that was so you, what you have replaced it is with mental stress, leading to cortisol levels being high in the body and causing a big mess of the body. And then after 10 years, 12 years, you realize that your physical health is very compromised, and there may be a long journey back to health. But still, you have to first deal with the mental pressure and stress and tension, because unless you fix that, nothing can be fixed. So it is extremely important for you to identify these issues in time, address them in time. It's not to blame anyone or say that someone is wrong or the partner is not good. There's no judgment here. But at some point you need to understand your well-being is extremely important, and you are needed to be healthy in order to be able to have any kind of healthy life. So address these issues in time. If there are red flags which are beyond repair and you just can't really paint them white or pink or any other color, then probably you need to think or rethink why you are where you are. And if it is a wound in you, which is 100% of the time, which is causing you to tolerate this kind of a relationship and situation, I really suggest start working on yourself. Forget about the partner, forget about anything else. No blame, no judgment, but start working on yourself and understand why are you allowing this to happen. I hope this video will serve you well, and I hope if you are in such a situation, you will find a way out. Stay blessed.